Here on Big Red Rant, we've gotten a few things right. Of course, our predictions don't always come true, but this season, we both agreed the Huskers are just a better team. We said it with our chests, and here we are. After a 28-10 beatdown, in which the referees clearly held Colorado's hand the entire way down the field by giving them flags. But still, I think that's a great score. Gary, are you worried about the way that the offense sputtered in the second half? And what do you feel you learned about this team in this win?
In short, yes and no. I think I was complaining quite a bit when we were on that live stream. I didn't like the play calling, mainly in the second half. There were some good things that came out of it. You alluded to the flags and the referees, and it called back a big Ramir run, a Ja'Cory Barney run, things like that. I think we could have gotten a little bit better tempo and momentum going and gotten a little bit more points on the board while also trying to eat clock. It's clear they were trying to eat clock, right? So I'm not too upset. And, especially now looking back at it, I'm not as frustrated as I was at the time. Me personally, there's ways to go about it, but I'm not an offensive coordinator for a Pee Wee league, let alone a D1 Big Ten school. So it is what it is. I thought the biggest thing I learned, we both predicted Nebraska to win. I figured Nebraska would win handedly. I thought the game went almost opposite of what I expected. I figured it'd be close the first quarter into the second quarter, and then Nebraska would kind of open it up. It was exact opposite. Jumps at 28-0 lead, and then, went pretty stagnant on the offensive end. But we're not accustomed to in recent history winning games we're supposed to win, especially when they're, a primetime game or there's a bunch of hype, things like that. Everybody who watches us by now knows my thoughts on Colorado and the talent level difference. They've got some absolute studs on that team, but it's not a good team. It's not a complete team. If you build a team, you want to build it from the lines back on both sides of the ball, and they don't have that. They're almost doing the opposite. So I wasn't surprised at the outcome at all. I was I don't want to say surprised. I've been kind of waiting for it for a while, but I was very excited to see Nebraska handle business when and how they're supposed to handle business, if that makes sense. I feel like Rule has things under control where outside noise isn't a big deal. There was clips all over the internet last week about Dion himself bringing in players on the team that had players or, parents or family members in the past there, trying to explain the significance of the rivalry, which in my opinion kind of goes back to my point when you and I were debating if this is a rivalry or not, when you have to teach the team about it. But they seem to be more involved with that, where when you heard Rule in his press conference and Raul in his presser, things like that, every time they were asked about the rivalry, they're like, it's just football. You just have to keep it football, one play at a time, situational football matchups, blah, blah, blah. Don't get caught up in all the extra stuff. And we've heard a lot of good things in press conferences. And then when game time comes, it's a different scenario. But I thought they did a phenomenal job, man. Nobody seemed to be playing out of their minds, like doing things out of character. Nobody seemed to be shying away from the moment. I really loved seeing Bayer have the type of game he had, especially as much heat as he caught from saying you can't compare the two quarterbacks. Raiola's Raiola, man. I mean, again, I know I sound like a broken record, but I'm not going to overhype this kid. I'm not going to expect a bunch of stuff to be put on. Like he said before the game, I don't really feel pressure. It's just excitement. And when you can view things that way and you're that focused on sticking to game plans and doing what you're supposed to do in the moments, he's passing every single test as it comes along. There might be a time where he has a hiccup, but so far we haven't seen it. I don't think this is a monstrous game. I think the situation was about as big as it's going to get. A night home game, primetime TV, the most hyped team there is in college football comes into town. And again, I don't think the talent level's there to match all that, but he did what he needed to do. He looked good.
They might not have the talent that they think they have, but they were talking, and that got them going. You mentioned that Coach Rule and Dylan are downplaying the rivalry, saying it's just football. But Dylan did mention in his presser, this one meant a little more because of things that were said last year. So I do think there was something there.
For sure. But that doesn't mean that's what you make your week of practice about. That's not part of your game plan. Like Ty Robinson also alluded to it. He's like, I was only there for half of the game. I wasn't there full 60 minutes. I was going to make sure they felt me. He clearly had some carryover from last game. It kind of tells you something about Raiola. He was still in high school last year, but he watched the game. He heard what was said, and he took that on, as he was part of that team, even though he wasn't going into this game this year. It's been brought up. No one was ignorant to the fact. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying when you're cutting away in meetings instead of completely all in on film or on the practice field and your coach is pulling you aside and talking to you about the rivalry and different things like that, I'm not saying it's right or wrong at all. I'm just saying there was two very different approaches from what we could see on the outside looking in. And Nebraska in the past, especially, would let any type of extracurricular activities or outside noise affect the way they play or the way they could consistently play. And I thought that was a huge difference. I feel like that's a huge step for the program, culturally, for the program to grow and take a step in where, yeah, we don't care, man. It can be a big rivalry. It can be a highly ranked team. It could be UTEP or Northern Illinois. It doesn't matter, or Northern Iowa. I'm sorry. It doesn't matter. We're practicing to execute these plays in these matchups this way, and that's all we're focused on. That's all that matters. Is there a little extra motivation from guy to guy? Of course. You know what I mean? We don't know. There could be, maybe somebody felt some type of way against UTEP, but it wasn't gassed up, so we didn't hear about it. Maybe we'll have that next week. I don't know. But I'm just saying, like, they didn't shy away from the fact that we're the hated rival. They got to beat us. They got to learn all this stuff about the rivalry and this and that. Our guys acknowledged, yes, it's a thing. Some people had carryover from last year, but as far as like the program's rivalry, I didn't feel like anybody mentioned that.
Matt Rule let our actions speak over our words. He kept it civil. I think in the behind the scenes of the UTEP game, there was a moment where the cameras caught Coach Rule saying, we're going to basically beat them up and then shake their hands and tell them good job. And a lot of people took that as like, God, what an arrogant thing to say. That's how he wants to go about business. Be professional, be kind, but beat the trash out of them and then show them respect. I like that, and that's what it seemed like he was focused on doing, and he did. You're right. He's never played into the rivalry the way that Colorado did, unless you're looking into it that way, and that's how you see it.
It comes down to whether you like or dislike a coach's approach, but it doesn't make it right or wrong. You know what I mean? Like, I honestly don't dislike the way Dion handles things. Like, you know me, like, I like joking around. I like talking shit. If I could be at a level so high that I could do that and still be successful, it'd be phenomenal. But the difference is he's doing it and winning 4 wins and then coming to Nebraska and getting smacked in the mouth and almost losing to South Dakota or North Dakota State. So it's fine. Do your thing. I'm not knocking that, but I'm going to clown you when you're talking shit and your players are talking shit about how they're going to work us or how we were disrespectful or Nebraska was disrespectful like this. Like, okay, man, like you've got the arrogant part down. You just don't have the backing up of it to keep going with it. So I'm going to talk shit about that. That doesn't make it wrong. If next year he turns a corner and keeps that same style, the same approach to his program and the culture and everything, and they start winning games, like, man, that's wild. That's crazy. You know what I mean? I'm not going to sit there and say the same things about him leading up to this game next year if they do turn a corner. But I'm pretty straightforward, like it or not. You know what I mean? From the fan bases, that's what I saw. I saw a team that's not very good, that has really good players at key positions. So I understand why you think if you got most teams in the NFL, if you're like, hey, who's the better quarterback? That's typically who's going to win the game. But they're all NFL players on the team. In college, they're not. So you can have an NFL quarterback and an NFL wide receiver. If I told you we're going to put a team together in college that consisted of Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Justin Jefferson, you'd be like, oh, you're going to win as many titles as you want to win. And I go, well, we're going to give them UTEP's defensive line. You know what I mean? And then you start picking all these random teams that have bad positions and you put them with them. And it's like, are they going to beat Ohio State? The idea that you have these really good players at key positions doesn't mean you have a really good team, yet everybody, including them, goes around acting like they are top-notch team that can't be beat. So that's where the shit talking comes from. I don't care what approach you take from a coaching standpoint, but I don't necessarily, I mean, I do prefer Rule's deal. I feel like it keeps, you got to keep in mind, these guys are making a lot of money with NIL now, but they're still young men or older kids, however you want to look at it. So keeping them reeled in so that you've got good control over the program by the way you're guiding and developing these people, it gets a little bit tougher when they've got money comparable to what the coach is making. And they've got the mindset of an 18, 19, 20, 21, whatever year old. Like, imagine when you were 20 years old, if somebody gave you $1 million, you know what I mean? Like, you couldn't tell you shit at 20. They definitely ain't going to. You got $1 million and you got it doing what they're trying to coach you to do. It's like, I know what I'm doing. That's why you're paying me money to come to your school and play. So there's a way of navigating it, and everybody does it a little bit different. So to say who's right or who's wrong,
I think this last game proved that Matt Rule's system is better for the long haul. And I believe that this game was the beginning of the end of the Coach Prime era in Colorado. I think we'll look back and see that this was the moment when Colorado fans realized that they had been sold some snake oil.
I hope it's not, because I honestly do like the fact that you have a very subpar team that is a marquee matchup most weekends. We weren't watching Nebraska play tonight in prime time with that kind of publicity if it's not for Colorado coming in, right? So there's something to that. I don't hate Dion, despite what people say or how they take what I say and turn it into their opinion or whatnot. But I mean, maybe it is. It'd be kind of ironic or kind of funny, because all week I heard that when Colorado beat us in 2001, that was the beginning of our end as a program. They knocked us out. So it'd be kind of ironic, but it's a good win. It's a solid win. I'm not crazy like acting like we're going to run the gauntlet with it now because we beat them. I think we should have. I think they did exactly what they were supposed to do. I don't think next week will be too much of a test. It should be a game where we can get, second and third strings in there. We didn't really make record predictions at the beginning of the year, at least not that I remember. Does this game or these 2 weeks combined reinforce, change whatever your opinions or expectations you had at the beginning of the season for the team?
I think we're on the best trajectory we could have been on. There was beat Colorado and hopefully end up 7-0 or whatever before Ohio State. Then there was, you could lose to Colorado, be 6-1, still having a great season. Or there was, things are going the wrong direction. We're on the first one. And I think with the Big Ten looking a little bit less daunting this season early, I'm really excited about what we could do in the Big Ten.
So before Ohio State, we have Illinois, Indiana, and Purdue. You think Colorado beats all three of those teams?
None of them.
That's why I never understood if we got past Colorado, we'd be undefeated playing Ohio State. I feel like our test and like where we really get to start seeing who we are is when we start Big Ten play. But like I said, that's just me.
Well, tell us what you guys think in the comments. Is that the case?